Hey everyone, this is Ricardo with the Weekly Deck Tech. We had an exciting weekend at Grand Prix San Diego, and we saw a bunch of sweet decks in the top 8. Today, we're going to go over Blue-Red Tutelage. This weekend was all about beating Mono Red, as it just won the Pro Tour and everyone was seeking to conquer the monster that was Red Deck wins. Everyone was bringing Abzan and hard control decks to beat into the Red decks, but no one could read the meta better than Michael Majors. The idea behind this deck was to simply take advantage of the slower decks that weren't mono red and just mill them out, and that's exactly what he did. Let's take a look at the key cards Michael had brought to the GP. Sphinx's Tutelage is the breakout card of the set. Everyone has either been brewing around this card or keeping a close eye on it. Its potential to get more than just a few cards out of your opponent's library is very real, and Michael ran it to first this past weekend. Jace has been an insane card since release, but no real surprises there. It's Jace after all. In this deck, we can get a Jace flipped very quickly, with all the discard spells that we have. When he's flipped, we have access to board wipes that we've already used. And if we're able to get an emblem, then, well, the game closes out pretty fast. Treasure Cruise was such a hard enabler for this deck. It's an incredibly powerful card on its own, and when it triggers an effect like Sphinx's Tutelage, you'll feel like you've just won the Magic Lottery. Magmatic Insight and Tormenting Voice are his key draw spells that help him kill his opponent. Their low cost is welcoming as these cards have an additional cost of discarding a card, but this is well received with Jace as you want cards to be in the graveyard. After an impressive victory over the event, the deck has received a bunch of praise. His sideboard has a bunch of good ones, not only to protect Tutelage from disenchants, but keep faster decks at bay. Let's take a look at the sideboard, shall we? In his sideboard, he has packed 1 Whelming Wave, 1 Seismic Rupture, 1 Encase, 3 Annul, 4 Fiery Impulse, 4 Negate, and 1 Disperse. His third copy of Whelming Wave is very good against any megamorphing strategies. If you're against a creature-heavy list, bring this in. Seismic Rupture is just another board wipe. If the opposing deck has a bunch of critters, such as red decks, we want to bring this in and wipe the battlefield clean of creatures. Encase is spectacular against any heavy creatures such as rhinos, raptors, and atarkas. If we see this silver bullet against any decks running those creatures, it should help delay the attacks long enough for us to draw into the win. Annuls are seriously good against Courser Kruphix, but they are mainly in here for the blue-red Insole deck, as their threats consist of Hangerback Walker and Chief of the Foundry. Fiery Impulse is a functional lightning bolt in this list because we don't aim damage at the face. This card can snipe the early creatures we see. This is especially good against red and blue-red Insole because we can kill any creatures that they throw at us. Negate is here to protect the Sphinx's Tutelage. We can't deviate from that plan, and we need to protect it from any kind of disenchants. This is also a solid card against burn decks because we can't really interact with that kind of attack. We can handle creatures for days, but definitely not burn spells. The last silver bullet is in the form of Disperse. I'm completely behind this as we can use this for artifacts that have Insole artifact on them. It's a way of dealing with Hangerback, and we can bounce any banishing lights that have captured our tutelages. Now I'll be going over the cards that I would bring in and take out. Going against the top 8 matchups, we have Black-Red Dragons, Esper Dragons, and Abzan Constellation. I'll also be going over what to bring in against Burn, as it's a deck that you're sure to see at your local FNM. The Black-Red Dragons doesn't really have an early game against us, as we attack from a completely different angle from other decks. Black-Red Dragons preys on creatures, and well, we only have Jace. This is a deck that we can bring in our Encase, Disperse, and Seismic Rupture. Since our opponent isn't doing anything in the early stages of the game, we can pretty easily deal with the late game threats as they're only coming out one at a time. I'd take out Alhammarret's Archive and 2 Anger of the Gods as they just really aren't pulling too much weight for this game. Esper Dragons is a tough one because they have a lot of counterspells and hand disruption. On top of that, they have some pretty scary ways of killing us in the form of Planeswalkers. Here, we are sure to bring in our 4 Negates and our 1 Disperse. I would take out all 4 Anger of the Gods and a Send to Sleep. It's a tough match for sure, but when we get the ball rolling, we can find our cards easily as this deck is designed to just draw cards. I want Whelming Wave in because we will have to answer any dragons that come down. Abzan Constellation is a good matchup. We have a ton of mainboard answers to their creature strategy, and we can pretty easily fend them off long enough to kill them. Here, we auto bring in 3 Annuls and 4 Negates. We know going into the matchup that he has infinite obliterations and banishing lights, so we need the Negates. And we also know that he's playing heavy enchantments, so the Annuls are a no-brainer. Vyrn is not a deck that was faced in the top 8, but we know it's a scary deck that you'll have to play against sooner or later. This isn't in our favor too much, but if we keep to the plan, we should be able to pull out the wins. We bring in 4 Negates, 4 Fiery Impulse, and 1 Seismic Rupture. we need to keep the creatures away from our face, as well as the fire that they pack. I'd take out 1 Alhammarret's Archive, 4 Jace Vyrn's Prodigy, 2 Magmatic Insights, and 2 Islands. Call me crazy, but all the cards we are siding in need to be there, and we could pull back on the lands if we pull back on Magmatic Insight. All of our lands that gain us life should cushion our early game a bit and help us get to the late game. If we can put down a Sphinx's Tutelage with 12 or more life, we should be just fine. So that's the sideboarding plans. Now, one major appeal this deck has is that we're able to keep most of it after rotation. If you take a look at the deck list again, all we're missing out on is Anger of the Gods, Whelming Wave, Temple of Epiphany, and Annul. Seeing as Annul is a sideboard card, that's easy to replace, but the board wipes we have will need to be swapped out for something, right? Well, we did get Displacement Wave and Seismic Rupture. These obviously are on lower power levels, but we haven't even seen what's in Battle for Zendikar. Either way, I've nabbed up a bunch of the deck already, and I'm fixing on playing it for the time that I can. Alright folks, that's all I have for you today. This weekend showed off the diversity of Standard, and we got another really cool deck as well. This has been Ricardo with Gathering Magic. Thanks for hanging out.